This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Nick Pittinger, Director of Data Service at Decisiv, and Chip Mowery, who has had a long 38-year career in the truck dealership and service world. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me again. It's great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Thanks for having us.
So the last time we talked, we went through some quarterly reporting that Decisiv had provided us, which was a great look at what's happening at the service level in the past quarter here. One of the things that we didn't talk about that really stood out that I really wanted to dig into was transmission service. Now, transmission service related events hit Decisiv reporting radar a couple of years ago at 1% in 2021, because you guys put out this great benchmarking service report at TMC, and I remember sitting in the room in 2021 and seeing transmission service on there, which surprised me a little bit. On the new report here that we're looking at VMRS service level parts and labor quarterly reporting, it's remaining steady. It's on the report, but with increased costs. So, Nick, I'm going to start us off here with you. Can we tell how much of the volume is in automated or manual transmission at that VMRS level?
Yes, our process is definitely able to differentiate those two things. So part of the encoding model is able to separate those automated transmission versus manual transmission related operations. They have two different codes. So O27 is for the automated transmissions, while O26 is for the manual. So we're able to kind of be able to see the volumes associated with each, the costs associated with each, with the other report that you mentioned as well with our TMC partners. So we're definitely able to kind of see how is that trending on both sides. And some of the things that we have been seeing with specifically, again, automated transmissions starting to kind of take over a little bit more of the industry. We have them in that top 10 list of this report that we provided to you intentionally. We're seeing more costs associated with that, and we use that to kind of derive, what are the most important things that we wanted to share with the industry about what we're seeing and how it's there. So that's why O27 for the main automatic transmission is in the top 10, while the O26 manual transmissions, they're in the top 25, yes, but they're down at like number 15 of, where are the dollars going? So I think that is an indicator of, again, there's more and more of these automated manual transmissions out there in the industry and less of the, traditional manual transmissions out there.
Right.
The operation volume that we're seeing aligns with that as well. So again, first, I was talking about, they're intentionally separated and ranked differently in our report based on where the dollars are going. But from the volume, we're seeing 2 to 3 times the volume in that O27 automated transmission code at around 13,000 operations in this most recent quarter for Q1 2023 versus the O26 manual transmission code only having around 5,000 operations for the quarter.
Wow. Chip, what's your service level take there? I mean, AMTs, they have been in the majority of the market. If you think back 6 or 7 years, right, when they were really gaining ground, it's been that long. And I mean, is this the first round of AMT service issues that we're seeing in operation? And what have you seen in terms of automated manual transmissions in the service world?
Well, it's been a little longer than that for some OEMs, but it's definitely come into big time because, Kenworth has gone all in on with their Eaton transmission, right?
Right.
Mack and Volvo had their I-Shift M drive for the longest time.
Yeah.
It's definitely the predominant spec. It has to be.
Yep.
It gives the OEM the ability to really control their powertrain by controlling that computerized and the automated transmission. They can control the efficiency of the engine, right? Make, model, year, Jason. I preached that on the shop floor. I was preached that by first service manager. Make, model, year. Every vehicle is built with the same code. It's just waiting for the odometer engine hour to hit that number to get sick. So you walk out there. And it also filters down and helps you diagnose, right? Because you walk up that vehicle, the history, the track history that vehicle, that vintage vehicle is set for itself.
Right.
They're seeing it on the shop floor. The first Kenworth Eaton transmission had some issues when it came out, just like the M drive and I-Shift did. There's also some driver error issues, like we discussed on another conference call, where the driver gets complacent and starts holding the vehicle on the hill with the throttle pedal rather than stepping on the brake, and that turns into a clutch heat issue. But it's the way of the world. There's the automated transmission has to be in that powertrain in order for that OEM to build a product that can be a fuel efficient, right, and meet emissions, because that goes hand in hand.
Right. Especially in the long haul over the road segment where it's the clear majority. We're getting some 13 and 14 speed AMTs into the vocational world as well. Allison's always had a good foothold in there on the automatic side. Going back to something, Chip, you said last time too, about, technology and being able to talk with people and work them through the process, right? I mean, here's an interesting example of something that, to your point, the odometer just had to hit the point on the AMTs and the market had to be saturated enough with them to start seeing these service events growing like this. But is it something that you think customers are ready for in terms of having that conversation about AMT service versus what they were used to in the manual world? Is that a technology conversation, or do you think they're pretty well prepared for that?
No, it's a technology conversation. You got to bring them in because it's, when you take off the top ship cover on an automated transmission, it looks like a manual transmission. Mm-hmm. It has all the same gears and everything that these guys were used to looking at when they took, whether it be a fuller, 10-speed or whatever. Right. So it is a matter of bringing them in, having them understand, this is, the solenoids and this is the top shift cover, and going through all that. It takes that visual. You have all the new, I always say this, we can sit and communicate in a Decisiv case and do all that new technology stuff all day long, but nothing replaces FaceTime.
Right.
Nothing. So when you get to a point that, again, transmission is another $12,000 repair or more, you can't spend somebody's money like that without, if all possible, bringing them in. Right. With your bigger fleets and stuff like that, that's a little bit different demographic in that you're talking to a guy that probably has the knowledge anyway, even though he's in Kansas or wherever, because he's seeing it throughout. But that independent owner, you have to bring them in. You brought up over the road. That's another aspect into this when you're talking about repairs. We're talking about regionally with California. Right. There's a huge vocational or over the road, huge difference in what you're seeing as far as repairs on a vehicle.
Right. Well, and then even go back to, you mentioned communicating in the Decisiv service relationship management platform. Again, in the fleet world too, FaceTime is still important. Transparency, visibility, being on the same page and what's happening with the service case, putting your notes in there, having those conversations. I know we talked about that a lot last time too, but just to reinforce that idea of being able to communicate in the same platform, see it all in one place, see all the history, not having it lost in email or a phone call or something you don't remember, right? Being able to bring all that information there can help with those conversations as well.
Well, you bring up another point, and this is something I've gone back and forth with the Decisiv programmers for years. It's called case history. Mm-hmm. So Decisiv does two things fantastic. Accountable, transparent communication. An estimate that can be revised that is second to none. But the other thing it can do, it can help you fix trucks.
Right.
And with the case history availability in each case for that vehicle, you can help a technician fix trucks. Right. He can step back in time, 6 months, whatever, right? Sitting there in the truck with his laptop and say, oh, these are the codes, as long as they're using TDS, these are the codes on the vehicle 6 months ago. This is what was done. It might have been in a different dealership. He's not going to see maybe some of the financials, but he's going to see the repair. And it's going to give him that ability to say, okay, this is what was done on that vehicle and connect it to today's repair and save him some time.
Right, for sure. Rather than it just being a blank canvas that he's having to try to troubleshoot and diagnose and root cause and go through all those things and not know what was done there. I like that. Nick, you'll have to add like time travel to the Decisiv product pitch there, because that's a good example. Getting back to
I usually tell everybody just gets on the chitty bang bang.
There you go. That's a good one too. Getting back to some of the data here related to transmissions, Chip, I know you mentioned where you might see clutch issues in AMTs. Clutch was another quarter of a quarter over quarter, and year over year volumes. Those are down, it seems, on the clutch side. What does that mean in when transmission service events are up? So clutch service quarter over quarter, year over year down. Transmission service events up. Do you have an idea of what that means? Nick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd say, kind of what we're seeing, the numbers we're seeing, clutches were down around 1% quarter over quarter, so minor change, and then down roughly 5% year over year. But to your point, kind of clutches, transmissions, they're all kind of interrelated, obviously, to make that truck go. The biggest hypothesis that we have right now is, again, those older assets where clutches are involved, like the foot pedal clutches and things of that nature are, kind of phasing out and being serviced less on our platform. Again, so we talked about some of the numbers earlier where, there's less volume associated with those manual transmissions. I would think that would, kind of align a little bit with the clutch as well in comparison to the automated manual transmissions. So I think, more of that stuff is being built, more of that functionality is being built inside of the transmission components of the asset itself. So we think that, again, clutches are starting to kind of phase out a little bit with more of that move towards the automated manual transmissions. And, that would then lead towards, more work on, transmission related events instead of the clutch specific operations going forward.
Right. Chip, I know you've talked a little bit about there, but any thoughts on it as well?
No, he's exactly what he's saying. That's what we're seeing. And a lot of times when you're doing a clutch on an automatic transmission, it's generally a contingency item. So if you're replacing it, tell you it was caused by a CCA failure or something like that. So it probably would come up differently on the VMRS codes.
Right, and again, going back to that AMT, understanding the components within then, right? Because the clutch replacement was a pretty standard thing here for decades with manual transmissions and trucks. So understanding those components in the AMT and what's going on there, interesting to see how that correlates.
Yeah, I mean, it's agreed, yes. And it also, like I said, a lot of times the clutch now and automatic transmission, if it's failed because of a different failure in that automatic transmission that caused it. So you're not just going to get it. It's like before you went in and the clutch was just the pilot bearing had let go on a 14-inch or 15-inch clutch, right? So there was no doubt they would come up as a clutch failure. Now it's not going to. It's going to go in and be replaced, but because of something else.
I see. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time. Always great catching up with you. Always great talking through this service data. Really appreciate you sharing all this information. I think it gives us a great insight into what's happening out there at the service level. And I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon as more data is compiled and analyzed.
Nice chatting with you as well.